We're going to talk about turtles and tortoises, mainly freshwater turtles and tortoises. Chelonians or testudines as a group is an ancient group that has survived, remained mostly unchanged from its early ancestors. Chelonians can be divided into sea turtles and freshwater turtles. Sea turtles are a group by themselves. They inhabit mainly the oceanic waters, whereas the freshwater turtles can be further divided into hard-shell turtles and soft-shell turtles. And then we also have the land-dwelling tortoises. To understand a few features that make chelonians very special, we will sort of go through the characters that make them different from other species and how they have used these characters as adaptations for survival from such a long time. So the shell of the tortoise is what we will take care of first. It is the top shell is called the carapace and the abdominal area is called the plastron. It is enclosed, so the shell encloses the body, and the shell is formed by the fusion of the thoracic vertebrae, and therefore it's in two layers. The inner layer is the bone and the outer layer is keratin that is fused together. As the turtles grow older, a newer layer of keratin is deposited at the bottom and the top layer sort of comes off as the animal ages. Just below the carapace are the reptile lungs, and these are functional lungs. They need it for gaseous exchange and they have to therefore come up outside the water to take in air and then breathe it out. They do have limitations, especially the hard shell turtles and the tortoises, because of the hard shell that they have that encloses the chest cavity, and therefore the adaptation they have used is that they suck in their air into the lungs. It's forced in by the mouth muscles, and by contraction of the abdominal cavity and the pectoral muscles, the air is thrown out. Skin breathing is almost completely abandoned in these animals. Next, we will look at the mouth parts. Turtles and tortoises do not have teeth. So, in the upper and lower jaw, they are equipped with tough horny plates for gripping and chewing food, and the edges are serrated that helps them to bite the food and then they swallow it whole. When we talk about the nervous system, they are intelligent animals, almost as intelligent as any other species, and they have a good learning ability, though the brain is small, never exceeding more than 1% of the body weight, but the cerebrum is larger. So turtles learn quickly, almost as quickly as a rat to run in a maze. Turtles and tortoises have ears. They have both the middle ear and the inner ear, but the perception of sound is poor. They are virtually mute, though occasionally they are known to grunt or roar, mainly tortoises, and these sounds are more often than not heard during mating season, where there is courtship displays that are happening. The poor hearing that they have is compensated by a very good sense of smell, acute vision, and some believe that the color perception that they have is almost as good as that of humans, which is why we use brighter colored food in the presentation and a lot of color in the enclosure to help with enrichment of the species. There are a few characters that we need to look at when sexing turtles and tortoises. In most freshwater turtles and tortoise species, the females are larger than the males, and the vent, if it falls below the edge of the carapace, then it is considered to be a male, and if it falls within the edge of the carapace, then it is considered as a female. In some species, the males also show a very prominent concavity on the plastron, and that is essential for them when they are mounting the female, because otherwise they will just slip and fall off, whereas the female plastron is generally straight. It's not uniform across the species, but this is true in majority of the cases. So it cannot be taken as a single individual characteristic, but has to be taken as a whole when you're talking about chelonians as a species. Reptile copulatory organs in chelonians are internal, and that is necessary for internal fertilization, which in turn is responsible for formation of a hard-shelled egg. There are various displays is actually quite spectacular in freshwater turtles and tortoises when it comes to courtship and mating. The males may swim around looking for the appropriate color, whether it's the stripe or the spots, and they look for the appropriate female. And mainly it is pheromone driven. The males use the claws to grip the female and mount her, and then copulation happens in the water. Terrestrial species may vocalize. Males track females for several days almost with the pheromonal signals that the female is producing. Males mark territories with fecal pellets. Courtship involves rubbing of limbs, again scent glands which are on the underside of the jaw, sniffing, biting, ramming, and sometimes they become quite aggressive as well. There's biting of head and limbs, which is sometimes a part of the courtship display. Once the courtship is over and there's successful copulation, turtles, females will lay eggs. They dig a hole in the ground and can, depending on the species, lay anywhere between 4 to more than 100 eggs. They exercise extreme care in construction of the nests, and they are almost a composite unit that is protecting the eggs from any environmental source externally. They deposit the eggs and then abandon them. There is no known parental care by female freshwater turtles and tortoises for their eggs, and the incubation period can last anywhere between 1 to 14 months. The most typical being 40 to 60 days. Tortoises are land-dwelling animals, and the largest tortoise is known to weigh several hundred kilograms. The giant tortoise of the Galapagos Islands are the world's largest terrestrial chelonians. They are mostly vegetarian in their diets, and we have at least 4 species of tortoises in our country itself. Freshwater turtle tortoise conservation can be divided into 2 parts: in situ conservation, which is basically in the field, and an ex situ component. So in situ conservation is where there is monitoring of the species, the habitat, nest protection at riverside hatcheries, and so on. Ex situ conservation component is where facilities that house these animals, whether they are zoos, conservation breeding centers, rescue centers, etc., come into play. There's conservation breeding programs that happen for these species, which include head starting initiatives and rescue rehabilitation programs where animals that are caught on confiscation are treated, rehabilitated, and then put back in the wild for survival of the species.